Welcome to the Ministry Central Leadership Podcast. Ministry Central is the official United Pentecostal Church International online resource designed to develop and enhance your ministry. Through the teaching and wisdom of experienced apostolic leaders, Ministry Central will equip you to pursue the call of God on your life. In this podcast, you will learn important principles, concepts, and ideas from apostolic leaders who are on the front lines of ministry, making a difference in their leadership and calling. I'm your host, Darren Sargent, and this is the Ministry Central Leadership Podcast. Thanks for joining.
Hey, Darren Sargent here with the Ministry Central Leadership Podcast, and today I have one of my best friends in all the world. Brother Jonathan Mullings is with us from Bakersfield, California. Can anything good come out of Bakersfield, California? Well, you're looking at it right here.
Great.
We served on the youth board for, how many years, John?
5.
5 years together. I think we started youth president. You were youth president. Kevin was secretary. I was director of promotions. Then when Kevin stepped out, I moved in to the secretary. So, yeah. Few good years. That's back when we were young, and I was going to say when we had hair, but you did have hair. Yeah, hair.
I'm far more handsome now.
Well, yeah, of course. That's evident. That's evident just looking at it. But Brother Mullings has been an incredible friend, incredible individual in my family and I's life. Him and his wife are dear friends, and their family. His mom and dad are incredible. His dad had preached our dedication service of our brand new building when we were pastoring. So there's been a Mullings Sargent connection since 2000, I think, at least. So several years. Today, Brother Mullings, tell us a little bit about what you do. You pastor a church. Tell us a little bit about the church, and then we'll get into what we're going to talk about today.
I pastor Truth Tabernacle in Bakersfield here in California.
Yeah.
And this month, 19 years I've been senior pastor.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow, you don't look a day over 29.
Yeah. I've been on staff there for 30 years. Started as youth pastor and then associate pastor and senior pastor now. It's been a great ride. God's blessed us.
Unbelievable.
We've since I've been pastor, been able to add on a nice 2-story children's and youth facility.
I've seen it. So it's beautiful.
God's been good.
Yeah.
So.
Something about the stability of just staying locked in someplace that builds, a legacy.
Yeah.
And the families that come out of Truth Tabernacle are great people. Of course, being in the Western District, in the SoCal District, we are connected for years. One of the things that I've noticed that you guys are doing at Truth Tabernacle is you have a heart for missions. I know you serve as missions. Are you the missions director?
I'm the district global missions director.
Okay.
And
district
I serve on
mission.
the national board as well.
Okay. But you as a individual and as your church, tell us a little bit about what you guys have done with your vision for missions beyond Bakersfield.
Sure.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Our church, starting with my father, has had a missions mindset. My dad, when he became pastor, the principle that he lived by in terms of operation of the financial picture of the church was that the first tenth of the tithe that we received went to missions.
Okay.
And so that was just the paradigm that I inherited, is that
That's
10% of our tithe goes to missions, whether it be NAM, Global Missions, She's for Christ. We're going to give 10% away. It's not going to stay in our church.
Yeah.
And so I inherited that paradigm. And so we'd always been a good missions supporting church. After I became pastor, we were growing. We needed to build a new facility. And so we added the 2-story building I referenced a couple moments ago. And it was about a $3.5 million project. And for us, that was huge.
In Bakersfield, that's huge.
In Bakersfield. And a beautiful facility, but it was the largest debt we'd ever incurred as a church. And so we had a big capital campaign. You know how those go.
Been a part of those.
It's a polite way of putting the screws on people and say, hey, we need you to give and sacrifice.
Yeah.
And people did. And so we went in with good commitment of support. Well, I had loved missions, growing up. We finished our building project, and about a week or two after we had opened the new building on a Sunday, an altar service, I was just pacing the altar area, and I was just saying, God, you know the financial situation we're in, you know the load this is going to be. And I started kind of bargaining with God and saying, God, if you'll bless us like you've never blessed us before, we're going to give to missions like we've never given before. And I was thinking, man, I'm being such a man of faith in this moment. And, God, you see this altruistic act that I'm involved in.
Yes.
And it was one of 2 times in my life that I can say that I know specifically that God spoke to me.
Okay.
Now, I know some people, God speaks to them
every
morning over Cheerios, but that's not me.
The minute they eat Raisin Bran,
He talks to me through His Word. Mainly. But this was one of those moments. So I'm having this great, deep conversation telling God, if you'll pour out your blessings, we're going to bless missions. And God spoke to me. He said, how about you give to missions like you've never given before and see how I'll bless you?
Wow.
It's like, okay, we can try that. And then it was like the next breath, it was as clear as day. He said, I want you to fund the construction of 10 churches on the mission field in the next 3 years. And so the next 5 minutes or so, pacing the altar, I have this argument with God, explaining to Him our debt, how much we're paying each month, and God, how are we going to do this? And He said, well, just try me. And He said, I want you to go up on the platform, because most of the church was still there. We were praying. It was a great service. And I want you to tell the church what we're going to do as a church over the next 3 years.
Wow.
And I'm like, God, we just had a capital campaign. We just put the screws on these people to sacrifice, and they have done so. And I don't know if they have any more to give, over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
He said, just let's go up and tell them. And in that conversation, he said, I also want you to call Bruce Howell on Monday and tell him what your church is going to do. So he's like, you're going to lay all that on the table.
The accountability is coming.
Yeah. So I stood up on the platform and I said, church, you know me as your pastor. You know my heart. I'm not given to dramatics and theatrics and saying things that are just trying to get you to do something. This is what the Lord spoke to me just now.
Wow.
And here's what we're going to do. And so I'm like waiting for the glares and like panicked looks. But my friend, the church erupted.
Oh, thank you,
praise
Jesus.
And worship.
That's
incredible. It was one of the most powerful.
I feel it now.
10 minutes, and people were just like, "Yes, we're going to do this." And that Sunday, before I could get from the platform to the back entrance, I had people coming to me, and we had already funded 3 of the 10 projects.
Oh my goodness!
On that Sunday.
Oh my goodness! When it's a God concept, it doesn't make sense in our minds. It absolutely makes no sense. But when it's a God concept, it's like God says, "Try me."
Yeah.
That scripture in Malachi, just try me.
Yeah, and
just
we
see.
did. And what was so beautiful about it was that over the next 3 years, I'd like to tell you that your money was just pouring in, and we had some of the most difficult financial challenges we had faced because we had a lease with the Head Start program that was going to lease part of our building.
I remember
that
this.
was going to pay us significantly each month to do that.
Yeah.
Well, 2 years in, because of the economy crash back in 10, 11, they vacated thousands of dollars a month we lost.
Wow.
So I came to General Conference. This was 13 years ago. 2 years into the 3 years, I think we had 7 churches funded at that point.
Now, what countries were these in, if you can tell us?
Uganda. I'm trying to think the earliest ones. Several in Uganda, Ivory Coast of Africa, Nicaragua.
Wow.
But I think those are the first 3 countries. I think we did 4 or 5 in Uganda alone, with the Tolstads were still there. And so.
Wow.
So I came to conference. 2 years in, we just lost the funding. I was panicking. God, how are we going to make our mortgage payments?
See, what's funny to me, and I'm going to do a person. I know John Mullins, and when he says he's panicking, he's panicking. I know how you are with that, because you do things right. You just do it right. And so I could go ahead. I don't mean sidetracking story,
because some people have like a 5-year plan. I have like a 20-year plan. So when something gets, I think it was God's way of messing up my plans. But
walk by faith and not by sight.
Come to conference, and I'm already in my mind saying, God, we've done 7.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to do the next 3 in the next year. And Global Mission Service
Here we go.
I almost didn't come because like I'm not going to go, God. 'Cause
I'm afraid to go.
Exactly. It's like God, I don't, because I'm thinking I don't. I've already talked myself into how good we've done on 7 churches.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to.
Wow.
Wayne Huntley preached that year, and I can't remember the whole message, but he quoted, you have not because you ask not. You have not because you ask amiss.
Yeah.
And he started talking about the things that we ask for. He said, you want a new boat, that's a miss. You want a new house, that's a miss. Got these misses,
Wow.
And it was like God was just saying, it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
So I went home and I preached that Sunday about reaping in a time of famine, or sowing in a time of famine. And I said, we're going to get this done. And thankfully we did.
You did.
So we got 10 churches in 3 years. And I know I'm kind of filibustering here a little bit.
No, it's good.
But the beautiful thing is that God used that to create a culture of giving to missions like our church had never seen. So now we're 15 years from that point, that first time God talked to me. We didn't stop at 10. We used to have a partner in mission wall at our church. We're all our partners, and we ran out of room on that wall. So I took them down, and we did a missions project wall. So now our
incredible.
Wall. And so we just this year funded our 50th building project.
50th?
50th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's flip it.
Sure.
Just a minute. You're over there. You're doing all these work. You now have planted 50 churches or funded 50 churches in their construction in all kinds of nations.
Yeah.
What have you seen happen at home?
Yeah, that's been the amazing thing. In a time of our greatest financial debt and pressure in terms of mortgage and all that stuff, we've given more to missions than we've ever given before, but we gave ourselves out of debt.
So you guys are debt-free?
We're debt-free. Our building's paid for.
So not only have you funded 50 churches, but everything is now
paid for. Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
And that's become the culture of our church is we don't give to be blessed. We give because we are blessed.
Oh, that's good. Say that again.
We don't give to be blessed.
Yeah.
We give because we are blessed.
Yeah.
And God keeps blessing. And so the concept is, and this is not unique to me, I heard it years ago, but we get to give.
Yeah.
To get to give.
Exactly.
To get. So it's not, we never become, I got a raise, so I get. Yeah, you reap the benefits too, but now you can give more.
Yeah.
And so now we have individual families in the church who will come to me and say, hey, Pastor, we have $10,000. We want to help fund a building project. They come to me. I don't have to. We'll have missionaries come through, and I'll just feel led to step up and say, hey, we want to build a church in this country, and I'll stand up on Sunday, and in 5 minutes we'll have the money for it. And there's no pressure.
Unbelievable, bro.
It's just the culture of the church.
The individual families that have bought into the vision, I can imagine their blessing and what God has done for them is probably, as a pastor, that probably thrills your heart more than anything.
It does. And if there's any pastors who are listening to this, one thing that I would encourage, because, faith is a gift of the Spirit.
Yeah.
But if we will exercise that gift of faith and get over the fear factor, because I talk to pastors all the time, because I do a lot of faith promise services.
Yeah.
And their thing is our church doesn't really have to give. We have this indebtedness. We have this child. And our people, they just really not missions minded. And I just tell them, you know what? Give your church, give your people an opportunity to hear a need and to give them an opportunity to respond to that need. And I guarantee you, your people, because there is, Brother Stan Gleason, and I'm not going to be quoting him directly, but the concept is basically there is a pocket of giving in every saint's life that will only be touched by a missions endeavor.
Yeah.
You can get up and talk about building a new wing on the church. You can talk about,
but that missions mind, that vision for beyond our borders.
Exactly.
I'm going to tell you this funny story, because I just saw, we're at General Conference while we're filming this, as you can see, and people are walking by. I saw a missionary family walk by. They were missionaries to, I'll butcher the name, but something Faso.
Burkina Faso.
Yeah. The brother and sister, Ken and Jenny Cantrell.
Yeah.
Okay, so Brother Gleason reaches out to me years ago and says, I've got a missionary family out of my church in Kansas City that are over in the region of Africa. They have a young man that they're working with that fell, broke his arm, gangrene set in. They had to cut his arm off. And he goes, I want you to connect with him. I got one arm. So I sent him my books, and they've, they kept me abreast of his life as he's grown older, and they still are in contact. Now the Cantrells are RDs, the regional directors, so I get to see him a little bit in St. Louis. But they were coming out on deputation, and we were going through it when it was just season in our church.
Right.
It was tight. We were fighting the devil and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
And they were coming through, and I was just like, no, it was a midweek service. I'm not going to have them. I'm not going to do it. I know we're connected, and I'm thinking I'll take them out to dinner, give them an offering or something. So I tell them, we're just not going to be able to do it. Well, that was on a Wednesday morning. I'll never forget it. I hung up the phone, and God says, you need to have them. You need to have them. And I thought it was the pepperoni, I ate the night before. And long story short, I finally, to about 2 o'clock, I said, okay, God, just like that. I said, okay, God, I'll have them. And I called them. And I said, are you guys still available? Are you sure, Brother Sergeant? I said, absolutely, I need you to come. They were at the zoo, San Diego Zoo, because they had a day off.
There's nothing to do in San Diego.
There was nothing to do in San Diego. And so they come that night, and he gets up. I introduce him. He gets up and says a few things, and then he says, I want my wife to come. She's got something she wants to share. And I may have shared this with you. I can't remember.
I don't remember.
She gets up in tears instantly. She goes, I was hoping we could come to this church. She goes, I grew up 150 yards from this church.
Oh, my goodness.
I would walk by in the morning and hear the sounds of prayer. My parents would mock you Pentecostals. She goes, I'd sneak in sometimes to get a drink from the drinking fountain while you guys were singing.
Wow.
And she goes, is there anybody left from night whatever the year was? And 2 or 3 ladies in our church stood up. She goes, thank you. They moved when she was 16 from Escondido to Kansas City, where she came to the Lord and found the Lord there in Brother Gleason's church.
That's
but
amazing.
she had a taste. Do you think I had a problem getting money that night? I took up an offering like that. The vision. I mean, these people are like, oh, she grew up right down the street.
We're a part of this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think the mindset of, so often I think we have been taught, or we have been introduced to this concept, you give, you'll get. Yeah. But in talking with you and hearing your story, it's reverse.
Yeah.
Give. Just give. Let God.
You're blessed already.
You're blessed.
Especially we as Americans. I mean,
We're
the
so
poorest
blessed.
among us.
We're so
that's
blessed.
the beautiful thing about missions giving. I tell our church, it's not the amount you give. It's you responding in faith.
Yeah.
It was mentioned on Monday night or Tuesday night, Brother Hundley in his message talking about not giving sacrificially, but by faith.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. When you respond in faith, you're responding to the voice of God.
Yeah.
Faith comes by hearing by the word of the Lord.
Amen.
So when you can give sacrificially out of your own mindset. Well, I'm going to give $500 sacrificially. My thing with the church is listen to what God tells you to do.
Yeah.
Respond in faith, because God will always push you beyond what you think is sacrifice.
Wow.
And that's what, like in our district, the awesome thing is our testimony as a church, and I use it not as a brag. I use it just to what God can
absolutely.
do. And so when I do a faith promise, I'll share some of our story like I've shared with you here.
Yeah.
I'll share pictures of what the church can do. This church that I'm in, hey, you can fund this building for $15,000.
Yeah.
And we can do this. And most of the churches, the pastor will say, yeah, we'll try to fund one project. And I'll ask him, hey, do you mind if I have pictures of maybe a couple of extras just to see what God might do? Because every single faith promise, the church always exceeds what the pastor thought they could do. And so the last 4 years in our district, through Faith Promise, our district, the Western District in California, has funded over 150 building projects.
That's incredible, bro.
And so it's just been a God
So the
thing.
vision's just caught on to church after church, and the eternal rewards. There's no telling the souls that we're going to see in heaven that are going to walk up and say, "Pastor Mullins, thank you so much.
Yeah,
you have no idea who I am, but
it's so
thank
humbling.
you."
It's so, and that's what I tell the church. You don't know, and that's our whole thing. When we paid off our building last year, which was a miracle. Like God has blessed us. I mean, we don't have time. Just the way that God has poured out blessings. But I told our church when we paid off our building, I said, now we paid off our building. but our purpose is still to advance the kingdom. And so our theme is advance the kingdom. So our building fund became our advance the kingdom fund. So they're still giving to the building fund, but we're helping NAM pastors, buy sound equipment. We're building churches. It's just our building fund is to fund and advance the kingdom.
That's incredible, bro.
So
well, man, I'm inspired this morning just listening to you just share it. Of course, we've been friends. You've kind of kept me abreast over the years, but to hear some of the particulars on what God, 50 churches you funded, 50 churches. You started with 10.
And we're running out of wall. I was telling my wife the other day, I said, if we put...
You're going to have to build a wall. Oh, boy, that was...
Be careful now. Don't get political here. But so we're trying to think, maybe we can put one more row on the bottom, but the kids might be able to reach it. So we're trying to think of logistics. It's like I said, and I don't think, but it's not a brag. It's just a testimony
look what God's done.
Of what God will do.
Look what the Lord can do.
And when we give out of our blessing,
that's so incredible.
He never lets us down.
Well, man, I so appreciate your vision. I appreciate your willingness just to talk about it. And I think it's encouragement to others that are out there. Yeah. If you're a pastor, again, I'm sure Brother Mullings would be happy to come do a faith promise for you. But
and if at the very least, I don't have to. I can call me. I can give you pointers. This is my heart. I love missions.
He's in Bakersfield, California. Buck Owens Town. Nobody knows who that is anymore. But man, I appreciate you. I appreciate your vision, your faith. Appreciate your friendship, of course, but
likewise,
lifelong friend. And you can't make new old friends, right?
No, you can't.
And we just every time we get together, we kind of pick up where we left off. But I want to tell everyone that's watching this, listening to this, thank you for tuning in. This will be one of those episodes that you'll probably watch and listen to over and over and over again because it just holds so much powerful things and principles that I think we could probably talk for 2 hours. But I want to thank you for being part of this, Brother Mullings. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Love you. Appreciate you much. All right, Ministry Central Leadership Podcast. Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Ministry Central Leadership Podcast. To learn more, visit us at ministrycentral.com and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Please take a moment, help us by sharing and subscribing to this podcast. May God richly bless you. We will see you in the next episode of the Ministry Central Leadership Podcast.